You're listening to the Fresh Hell podcast. Fresh Hell contains stories of a disturbing and often graphic nature and is intended for a mature audience. Please don't let your kids listen to this, or they might turn out like us.
Hi, I'm Annie from Massachusetts.
And I'm Johanna from Austria, and you're listening to your favorite international podcast.
If you're new here, welcome. We're so glad you found us. We are two online friends. We've never met in real life, but we get together every week to tell you stories of true crime, the paranormal, the strange corners of history, and of course, we like to bring plenty of research and just enough gallows humor to keep it bearable. And if you've been with us for years, you already know it's always something terrible, and it's always interesting, and also it gets worse. Always.
It really does. Always, always. Before we start, some of you may have noticed something new. Little ads popping up in our episodes now and then. Don't worry, it's still us. We haven't sold our souls completely. After years of keeping Fresh Hell ad-free, or mostly ad-free, we were so lucky to join a really supportive indie podcast network. And that means we finally have some help behind the scenes, and it helps us keep making the show for you every week without completely losing our minds. And we know ads aren't anyone's favorite, and we held off for as long as we possibly could. But this is a way the podcast can keep growing, and most importantly, stay free for all of you to listen to. So thank you so much for being so understanding. We already got some really nice feedback from you listeners out there. We just thought we should kind of inform you about this. Thank you for sticking with us.
Yeah.
You out there are all the reason we can still do this.
Yeah. And there was, previously we had noticed that ads were in our podcast that we had not authorized. So I think initially people were like, did you guys know there were ads again? It's like, oh, yes, this is brand new. And we were so anxious that people would be like annoyed or angry. And everyone's been like, yay, this is great. I hope you make enough money to visit each other.
Just, this is authorized by us. This is helping us. It's a great network. If you hear ads from other podcasts on our podcast now, go check them out. Highly recommend. We're so happy. We get so much support. I was so excited because it's like finally somebody who can give us all the tips and tricks after all these years. It's great. It's a really great chance for us.
It really is.
Of course, there are also other ways to support this podcast. And if you're interested, please listen until the end, because that's when we'll tell you more about all of that. Enough with all the logistics for now. Now it's time to jump right into today's episode. So far for SFM, we talked more about the typical Halloween topics, hauntings, witches, vampires, all a little bit more chatty and lighthearted in a way. But today's case is absolutely heartbreaking. We are talking about a Halloween murder, and it's the brutal murder of a child. So if this is a sensitive topic to you, please listen to this episode at your own discretion.
That's right. Yeah, this one is, we're not going to get into the graphic details of this, but it's tough. Okay, so I think first we need to talk about something that many younger people today have obviously heard about, but they might not be fully able to really imagine it. And of course, all our fellow Gen X and older, the elder millennials, I think they call themselves, and those older than us, you all know what we're talking about. If you grew up in the 1970s, the chances are your childhood was a little bit feral, but in the best way. It's not that our parents didn't love us, it's just that the culture and technique of parenting was wildly different. There were no cell phones, no GPS trackers in sneakers, no constant updates from school apps, none of it.
I seriously don't even know all the ins and outs of things parents today have to deal with. I have no idea what's even going on.
I know. I saw a meme the other day that made me laugh about how the reason so many people are having fewer children these days is because now they have to actually raise them. Not that we weren't raised, but
That's
it's
fair.
No, it's not.
We were raised.
It made me laugh. But the days are gone where you leave the house and your parents don't see you until
Yeah, no.
That's
It's
gone. Those days are are gone.
And it's not that it didn't happen back then, that accidents and all the horrible things didn't happen, but now the awareness is there.
That's it. It's the 24-hour news cycle. We hear every single terrible thing that happens immediately. But back then for us, it really was mostly be home when the streetlights come on. We got sunburns in the summer, frozen fingers in the winter, and bikes were freedom, right? Halloween especially was a night that belonged to kids. It wasn't curated by adults with trunk or treat events in parking lots or carefully organized neighborhood parades. It was chaos fueled by sugar in the best possible way. Just pillowcases for candy bags, a flashlight if your parents remembered and had the batteries for one. Basically, just groups of friends running through the dark in dime store costumes. You knocked on strangers' doors without a second thought. Your parents might be at home handing out candy themselves. Maybe they'd gone to a Halloween party of their own. Either way, nobody was hovering behind you with a travel mug of cider and a flashlight app. I mean, some of the parents like mine would walk with a group of younger kids maybe, but that was post Adam Walsh. He was murdered in 1981. And so there was kind of a paradigm shift there. But pre-1981, no. And especially at this time where it was maybe an older sibling or a cousin in charge or, a kid on the street. Whoever the oldest kid was on the street was going to keep an eye on everyone. So in Wisconsin, where our story will eventually take us, Halloween nights in the early 1970s were cold. Fond du Lac sits on the southern tip of Lake Winnebago, and you can all imagine how autumn air sweeps across the water with a bite. By late October, the trees are mostly bare, the daylight is short, and you can smell the change of seasons in the air. Kids would throw whatever costumes they could scrounge up, often pulled together at the last minute from whatever their mothers could find at home. A sheet ghost, a vagabond, a witch with a floppy hat.
I'm honestly mind-blown how elaborate some kids' costumes are today, and you'll know it, I never experienced Halloween as a kid. It wasn't a thing here, and it still is not really a big thing here. I think it was a bit of a trend for a couple of years in the 2010s, but that seemed to have mostly died down again. But we have Fat Tuesday where we dress up. That's our kind of costumey thing. Anyway, what I wanted to say, from what I gathered from movies and TV shows, costumes definitely seem to have been more homemade or more last minute back in the day, right?
Yeah, I think, There, you could also get really those cheap, I can smell them just talking about, I think everyone immediately can smell that cheap plastic masks. And you could get those at all these stores that are gone now, Woolworths, Caldors, Bradley's, Kmart, Ben Franklin stores, these cheap plastic masks with a plastic poncho with a print on it, basically. It was lame. But if you were more into dressing up, there were always families where the mom could sew and they'd have amazing costumes.
And these are the grown-ups who are into cosplay nowadays.
Yeah.
Probably.
That would have been me though. I love a costume. I've always loved a costume.
Me too.
If there's a theme party, look at us in Cinema Macabre. We're should we dress up?
I just wanted to say, have you noticed?
Have you guys not noticed that we love a wig and a theme? I mean, come on. Yeah, so you'd get all this cheap schlock, or your mom would make you something or whatever. And then inevitably on Halloween, because I know Wisconsin's going to be the same as New England in terms of temperatures, and you just end up having to wear a winter coat zipped up or long underwear underneath something, and you end up rage screaming at your mother because it ruins the whole look. But you had to because it was below freezing out. I know there are a lot of people out there that are nodding in solidarity with me about having to ruin the vibe with cold weather gear. I don't care if my fingers fall off, Mom. No one can see my lip press on nails. Oh my God.
Fond du Lac itself was a Catholic working class town, full of factory workers, small business owners, basically families who had been there for generations. And I think it's one of those places whose name sounds a lot fancier than it feels when you're standing there. It's French. Fond du Lac is French for bottom of the lake. Doesn't sound quite as glamorous as Fond du Lac, I think, but it's accurate because of the fact, as Annie said, it sits at the southern tip of Lake Winnebago. And long before Europeans arrived, the Ho-Chunk, the Menominee, and the Potawatomi people fished and hunted these lands. Then French fur traders moved in during the 1700s. They set up posts. And the name Fond du Lac or Fond du Lac, I don't know how you pronounce it in how the locals pronounce it.
I feel like it's Fond du Lac, but I've been wrong so often in the past.
Anyway, the fancy name stuck. By the 1830s, the land was being surveyed, platted, and sold off to settlers. And at one point, Fond du Lac even came close to being named the capital of the Wisconsin Territory, but ultimately lost out to Madison by just a few votes. It became a city in 1852, and from there it grew into a classic Midwestern town. Milling, lodging, farming, eventually industry. German immigrants made a big part of its population, and they brought with them the Catholic parishes. So I assume they were mostly from southern Germany, and they also brought breweries, and they brought their German sense of community. It was also a city that liked being first. The first in Wisconsin to install electric street lighting, for example, which must have felt so high-tech at the time.
Yeah.
Can you imagine all of a sudden you have electric street light?
Amazing. I always feel like electric streetlights and the invention of television are like such big... and radio.
The telephone, I think.
Oh, yeah, the telephone. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. By 1970, Fond du Lac was home to just under 36,000 people. That's the city proper, and the whole county had about 84,500 residents or something like this. So it's not a metropolis. It was a kind of medium-sized town where everyone had some kind of connection. You know, maybe your mom went to high school with your dentist, or your uncle worked at the same factory as your teacher's husband, these kind of things. The kids roamed freely on their bikes, and the parents didn't have to wonder too hard about who was watching them. I think it was just assumed that if something happened, the nearest adult would step in and step up.
Yeah, because they would. I think that's one of the things, you know, that I was trying to reference earlier, but badly. It's not that there was community back then that we don't have today. You know what I mean? Growing up, it was understood completely that a neighborhood mom or dad might patch you up, feed you, give you a spanking, depending on what the day's events warranted. And this was understood and accepted. Like, if you came home and it was like, where were you today? What did you do? It's like, oh, I was at so-and-so's house. Like, we both got spanked because we did such and such. But then, you know, we had a nice lunch there. And your parents wouldn't bat an eye. It was... Yeah. Can you imagine today going home and being like,
no.
So-and-so's mom hit me?
I mean, the spanking is fucked up. We don't spank anyone, please. But I think nowadays people are also scared, like, to interfere or to overstep boundaries when it comes to other children. So they rather say, like, none of my business, I'm going to stay out of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's scary, though.
And it all has a positive and a negative side, I think.
That's right. Like, we've talked about before on the show, like, every so often you'll hear about how a parent was arrested for child endangerment because they let their 12-year-old go riding for a mile on a bike, you know? And it's like, we couldn't survive as parents in this world. Like, how is that a problem?
I mean, that's still pretty basic here. Like, some of the things that are considered child endangerment are still pretty normal here in Europe, I think. I think
there's been it's what happens all the time, right? Like, things get a certain way and then we swing a little too hard in the opposite direction before we recenter ourselves.
I swear to God, humans are not made for the middle ground.
No, we're not. We
can't.
It's like we have to pick a side.
Also, people left their doors unlocked. Neighbors knew one another. Kids walked or biked to school without adults trailing behind them. And if you grew up there, you knew everyone on your block, and everyone on your block knew you. And I think that's part of what made Halloween such a big deal. It was the night of the year where the rules bent in the kids' favor. You were you were expected to knock on strangers' doors, and not only were they happy to see you, they rewarded you with candy, which is a child's dream.
It really was.
That's my dream. Knock on a stranger's door, get some candy.
The best. Yes. Even better, in the 1970s, no one had fun-sized candy bars. Fun-size didn't come until way later. You got full-sized Hershey bars, maybe a can of soda, or homemade treats like popcorn balls or caramel apples. The urban legends about razor blades and apples were only just starting to circulate, so there wasn't really any kind of panic about that yet. And if you're a longtime listener, you already know how the story behind all of this is pretty much a load of BS. So anyway, the idea that a child could vanish on Halloween night, that the holiday itself could be dangerous in some way, The scary thing growing up at that time for Halloween was always try to have something reflective. There's probably, and I swear this is true, be very careful when you're out tonight. There's going to be a lot of drunk people coming home after Halloween parties. So make sure you know what I mean? That was the fear. The big fear at Halloween was that you'd get hit by a drunk driver. Not that anything could happen, that anything remotely like this could happen. Parents worried about their kids eating too much sugar and then throwing up more than they did about anything sinister happening. And so it's this combination, this cultural freedom given to kids, the trust in neighbors, and just that unshakable sense of small town safety that is an important backdrop for the story that we're going to tell you today. And this story, true story, obviously, totally shocked Wisconsin. It horrified parents across the country, and it changed the way many families thought about Halloween forever. Because in 1973, in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, one little girl walked out the front door of her home in a costume on Halloween night, the way millions of other children did all around the country. But Maryann French never came home. Lisa was born in 1964. She was the eldest daughter, the oldest child of Bruce and Maryann French. By the fall of 1973, she was 9 years old and in the 4th grade at Chegwin Elementary School in Fond du Lac. She was bright, outgoing, known for being cheerful and polite. Teachers remember her as the kind of student who was eager to please. I think that's actually important.
Yeah.
Who raised her hand quickly and who wanted very much to do the right thing. Her parents had divorced the year before in 1972, but this was a time when divorce was starting to become a little bit more common. However, in a small Catholic town like Fond du Lac, it stood out. Maryann had been remarried to a man named Randy Zimmerman, and Lisa now lived with them and her younger half-brother, Sean. By all accounts, she adapted well. She was still really close to her dad. He lived nearby. And she was deeply bonded with both her mom and her stepfather. So it sounds like it was a really healthy...
Like a good patchwork family.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
And people who knew Lisa often mentioned how trusting she was and said that she was the kind of child who believed the best about people and that she wasn't suspicious or shy. Her mom would later recount this story when talking about Lisa. Quote, when she was 9 years old, she came home from school one day and she said, there's a little girl in school who doesn't have nice clothes. And she was wondering if she could go through some of the clothes she didn't wear and she should take them to school with her, and she did. She took a big bag of clothes to school for this little girl. End quote. I know. Neighbors described her as friendly and sweet, someone who would stop to chat and smile as she walked down the street. That openness was really a part of her charm, but it, as we were just saying, it just made her vulnerable in ways that adults could not have imagined at that time. And 9 is such a strange age. You're old enough to want some independence, but still young enough to be very much a child. And Lisa, like most kids her age, loved Halloween.
Yeah, that year she decided to dress up as a vagabond. It's a simple, I think, but popular costume for children.
That's right.
I mean, you can always dress up as a vagabond. It's like you're always going to have something at home for that.
Yes.
It didn't require money or planning. Just, some old clothes, a floppy head, smudged makeup, a stick with a knotted up handkerchief over your shoulder maybe. You can all picture it. Lisa's costume consisted of a black felt hat, a green parka, jeans decorated with blue masking tape. She had also painted some freckles on her cheeks and probably a candy bag in her hand. And her plan was go trick-or-treating with a friend, but when that plan fell through because the friend had been grounded last minute, Lisa asked her mother if she could go on her own. And Maryann said yes, and why not? It was Halloween in a safe, small town, tight-knit neighborhood. What was supposed to happen, right? And so Lisa left her house a little after 6 o'clock that evening, and she promised to be back by curfew. And with that, she stepped out the front door into the chilly Wisconsin night And Maryann expected her daughter to return with a pillowcase full of candy and, the flushed cheeks of a child who had spent hours running through the cold. And instead, nothing. Lisa set out from her house just after 6 o'clock that Halloween evening, and the sky was already darkening. And her first stop was at the home of a classmate, where she collected her first piece of Halloween loot. And from there, she headed to the house of her teacher, Miss Karen Bauknecht, who was waiting with treats for her students. Karen would later remember seeing Lisa smiling, in her costume, the candy bag in hand. And after those 2 stops, Lisa continued down East Scott Street, pretty much working her way towards her family home again.
Lisa had promised her mother that she would be home by 7 o'clock, but 7 o'clock came and went. At first, Maryann thought her daughter might just be running late, maybe lingering with friends, maybe squeezing in that last block to get some candy. I mean, it's Halloween. I think it's not that alarming if your kid kind of forgets about the time.
Absolutely.
Also, this is a time where there weren't, not everyone had a watch on them or a clock on them, depending on where you were. But as time goes by, Maryann is getting more and more uneasy. And by the evening, she called the police. And by the time the morning broke on November 1st, it had become clear that this was not a case of a child sneaking off for a sleepover or oversleeping at a friend's house. Lisa hadn't come home. She hadn't been seen. And her mother knew something was terribly wrong. The Fond du Lac police treated the report seriously right from the beginning, which was not always the case in the 1970s when children went missing.
Yeah, absolutely. Too often, if a kid didn't come home on time, the assumption was that they'd run away or they'd gotten distracted. They will turn up again, don't worry. And families were sometimes told to wait 24 hours or longer before even being able to file a report, which, as we all know now, can be the most critical window in a disappearance. There are infamous examples, like in 1972, 7-year-old Stephen Stainer, who vanished on his way home from school in California, and then police initially suggested that he was just a runaway. He wasn't. He was a 7-year-old. He'd been abducted and held captive for 7 years. Or in 1979, 6-year-old Ethan Patz disappeared in New York City. Again, at first, police thought that maybe he got lost or he's gone to a friend's house, and it took days for them to treat the case as an abduction, by which time any chance of finding him were really slim.
Yeah, and it's frustrating when we hear of cases where you have to wait because it's an adult. Imagine a 6-year-old. And so we really do have to give the Fond du Lac police and the whole community some credit here, because they all knew something was wrong and they threw everything they had into trying to find her and bring her home. In the days that followed, more than 5,000 volunteers turned up to help. Entire neighborhoods mobilized, family put aside work and daily routines to comb fields, alleys, and wooded lots. The local Block Parent Program, which is essentially a network of homes designated as safe havens for children — my parents did that program back in the day — had 700 members in Fond du Lac at the time, and they all...
That's a lot. Is that a lot? I never heard of this program, but it sounds great.
There were certified safe family homes, and I think there were it was a little decal or something you could put in your window or whatever. I don't think anything ever came. There's no story around it. It was just, I just vaguely remember that whole program. But yeah, there were 700 members in Fond du Lac, and they all joined the search parties. Auxiliary police officers, even members of the National Guard were brought in. And the search parties moved methodically through the town, checking parks, ditches, abandoned buildings. Flyers with Lisa's photo went up in shop windows. The Chamber of Commerce even offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to Lisa's recovery, which in 1973 was a huge amount of money. Local newspapers carried her photo on the front page alongside updates on the search. At night, residents kept porch lights on as a kind of a vigil, a small gesture to show that they hadn't given up hope. Hours turned into days, and that hope began to diminish. Soon, the worst fears her family and her community had were confirmed. On the third day of the search, November 3rd, 1973, a farmer named Gerald Braun was driving along McCabe Road in nearby Tachita, just a few miles from Fond du Lac. It was the kind of road you only use if you live out there, right? It's this rural stretch bordered by farm fields and patches of wood. And Braun, as he's driving, noticed something unusual lying just beyond a wire fence line. And at first glance, he thought it was just trash that someone had dumped in a field, which sadly was not uncommon along the back roads. But unfortunately, that was not what he discovered. This is from the Post-Crescent, Sunday, November 4th, 1973, page 1. Quote, Fond du Lac, body of girl, 9, found east of Fond du Lac. A routine Halloween night trick-or-treat outing by 9-year-old Lisa French ended in tragedy Saturday afternoon when the child's nude body was found by a farmer in a rural area east of here. The massive county-wide search, which had been coordinated at the Cow Palace at the Fond du Lac County Fairgrounds, had involved thousands of area residents. The body was discovered along McCabe Road in the town of Tachita, near State 49, just north of the small community of Peebles. Witnesses at the scene said 2 plastic bags were found, about 18 feet from the edge of the road, just inside a barbed wire fence. Lisa's body was in one of the bags. Her clothing was in the other. Fond du Lac County authorities, canceling an evening news conference concerning an autopsy being conducted by the State Crime Laboratory, declined to comment on the investigation. The wide hunt for the child had received the assistance earlier in the day of 3 National Guard helicopters dispatched by Governor Patrick J. Lucey. An estimated 150 persons were at the Cow Palace when it was announced Lisa's body had been found. The strain of sleepless nights led to an outbreak of weeping among the searchers. Sheriff John Stearns said, after cancellation of the news conference, he had no further comment. Officials said the girl's parents were in seclusion, reportedly with a clergyman who had been a frequent visitor at the family home since the search. The 3-day ordeal, which attracted statewide attention, began early Wednesday evening when Lisa left her home dressed as a hobo for trick-or-treating. The last positive identification of the 4'2", brown-eyed 4th grader occurred between 6:15 and 6:30 p.m. that night when she stopped at the house of a former teacher. According to her mother, Lisa was, quote, supposed to meet a friend to go trick-or-treating, but she never did. Police were notified late Wednesday evening by her mother and stepfather, and the search began. Police were joined by volunteers from the community Thursday, and the city and county were combed without a trace of her whereabouts. An estimated 2,000 persons searched Thursday. As guarded optimism about Lisa's safety dissolved into fearful apprehension Friday, searchers increased to as many as 7,000, still with no result. Fond du Lac's police chief Harold J. Rautenberg's attitude Friday morning typified the feelings of Fond du Lac residents. Quote, I am satisfied in my own mind that she is not missing voluntarily, he said. I had that hope. Now we have to face reality. End quote. To Lisa's parents, that reality was not cause for despair. They clung to hope that Lisa was being held by somebody but was safe. They appealed to the possible abductor to return Lisa unharmed and promised they would allow the person time to get away. The DePauw's hopes were shattered with Saturday afternoon's grisly discovery at the east of the city. When the tragic news was announced, the hand-printed note from 4 of Lisa's school friends laid on the table in the family living room. It read, Lisa will be all right. End quote. So this is awful. This is the worst thing. You don't ever want to find this. And
horrible.
The police were called immediately. The area was sealed off. Word spread quickly back in Fond du Lac that Lisa's body had been found. And so the hope that maybe she had just gotten lost or been hiding was now gone. The autopsy confirmed what no one wanted to even think about. Lisa had been sexually assaulted brutally and had died of asphyxiation, or possibly by shock brought on by the assault. She was 9 years old. Now, this is no longer a missing child case. This was a murder, and the community feared that the person responsible wasn't some faceless stranger passing through. maybe it had been someone close, someone that Lisa had known.
Yeah, I think people can rationalize the idea of a stranger, some drifter passing through town, committing violence. And I think it's terrifying, of course, but it's also kind of abstract. You know what I mean? Like a monster swoops in, does harm, disappears, but at least he's not part of the community.
That's right. You either want it to be someone who swoops in and departs, or the other thing you get a lot is, don't worry, it was just a problem within that family, right? Like foul play, but the public are not in danger, that kind of thing. So letting you know that, it was abuse gone wrong again, this kind of thing. But this is something different, right? This is that terrible, terrifying thing. You can say it's an outside threat, but when it turns out the killer is someone you know, someone in your community, someone who waved at you from their porch, someone whose baby or child has gone over to visit, it makes you face a really grim reality. And that is that ultimately safety, listen everyone, here's the thing, safety is an illusion. We are all fucked. Yeah. There is nowhere you can go.
Yeah, there is no safety.
It is though, it really is. Safety is an illusion and nowhere is ever really truly safe. It forces you to face the fact that sometimes the danger isn't always out there. It's not always something that happens to other people in other places.
I mean, I don't want us to spread panic. Of course, mostly you're going to be safe, but it's not guaranteed. That's what we're trying to say, I think.
Yeah, I think everyone who listens to the podcast knows that.
Yeah. The danger sometimes is across the street, living in plain sight. Lisa's funeral took place on 6th of November. This is from the Leader Telegram from Wednesday, 7th of November, 1973, from page 9. Fond du Lac Hans Slayer. Funeral services were held Tuesday for 9-year-old Lisa Ann French, while authorities continued their search for the person who killed her after she left her home to go trick-or-treating last week. Lisa's body was found Saturday in a rural area northeast of Fond du Lac, ending a 3-day search involving an estimated 5,000 persons. Officials said she had been sexually molested. The body was found in a plastic bag, her clothing in another bag nearby. The crowd attending the funeral at Emmanuel Trinity Lutheran Church included about 100 children who were released from class at Jagwin School, where Lisa was a 4th grader. In his eulogy, the Reverend Paul Piotr appealed to the girl's slayer to confess. "It is your only hope," he said, "otherwise you will be tormented all the rest of your days." Piotr urged everyone to accept some of the blame for condoning a permissive society in which such a crime could occur. Fond du Lac city manager Myron Madden spoke briefly. He told Lisa's parents, "We the people of Fond du Lac, like you, are stunned and numb. We are here. The entire city in spirit is here to share your sorrow." Lisa lived in Fond du Lac with her mother and stepfather. End quote. So, as we said, from the very beginning, the community, but also investigators in Fond du Lac suspected that whoever killed Lisa was not a stranger. And I think the main reason for that was the timeline.
Yeah.
It was just too tight, the neighborhood, too familiar. A 9-year-old doesn't just vanish between one front door and the next without someone nearby knowing something. I mean, of course, now we know it absolutely can happen, but in this case, the investigators definitely had the right hunch, and thankfully so. So neighbors were questioned. Police started building a picture of who had seen Lisa that night, where she had gone, the whole timeline basically. Her teacher remembered her stopping by, the classmate's family recalled handing her candy. And then there was Gerald Turner, a 25-year-old machinist who lived in Eastcott Street, not far from Lisa's house. Actually, he lived 3 doors down from Lisa Ann and her family, just 3 doors. Turner wasn't some stranger. He wasn't an anonymous face in the crowd. Lisa knew him. For a while, he had even rented the other half of the duplex where the French family lived, and Lisa sometimes went over to see his baby daughter. He was, in many ways, I suppose, exactly the kind of neighbor people in Fond du Lac were used to and trusted. At the time of the crime, Turner was living with his girlfriend, Arlene, and their infant daughter. As for his past, court records show no conviction for serious offenses prior to 1973. There are some claims floating around, though, mostly in less formal sources, that he had once molested a 15-year-old babysitter, but there is no confirmation of any charge or conviction for that in official court documents, so we just don't know.
I think it's likely. Any terrible thing about this guy, I would believe.
Yeah, and it's not far-fetched, let's say it like this. Yeah. What can be said with certainty is that Turner had no known criminal record before Lisa's murder. But when the police interviewed him, his story just didn't sit right. Turner admitted that Lisa had come to his door that Halloween night, but he said he didn't invite her in. And according to him, he gave her some candy at the door and sent her on her way. And that should have been the end of it, but the investigators just weren't convinced. There were some inconsistencies in his statements, just little shifts in details each time they spoke with him. And he seemed also very, very nervous and very evasive.
Yeah. Police did not have enough to arrest Turner right away, but his name stayed on their radar. That doesn't mean they didn't keep on working the case, though. For one, they were able to gather some physical evidence. Fibers from Turner's bread spread and hairs were compared to those found on Lisa's body and her clothing, and they were a match. Then Turner agreed to take a polygraph test, but the results came back inconclusive. When investigators asked him to take another one, he refused. These weren't definitive proof, but each piece added to the growing suspicion that Turner wasn't being honest. Months passed. It wasn't until August 8th, 1974, so nearly a year later, that Turner finally broke and he gave police a full written confession. In it, he admitted that Lisa had rung his doorbell that night, candy bag in hand, and said trick or treat. He stated that at the time his girlfriend wasn't home, but that he felt, quote, in his words, highly sexually motivated, end quote. Turner then invited Lisa, a 9-year-old dressed like a hobo, inside.
She's a 9-year-old and he's just highly sexually motivated, and then a kid rings your doorbell. And then what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
And it's a kid. My point there was that it's a kid who just looks like a little kid. Like, you can't even make the argument that so many predators do that, like, she looked older or she looked like she was asking, like none of those bullshit excuses that kind of did work back in the day would even apply here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Turner invited Lisa inside, and once there, he sexually assaulted her. He lured her into his bedroom, assaulted her, and at some point during the assault, he believed that Lisa had stopped breathing. He claimed that he tried to do chest compressions to revive her, but couldn't.
Do we believe that?
No.
No, right? Me neither. I don't.
No. According to his statement, he tried to revive her for a while until he heard his girlfriend pull up back at the house. When she arrived home, he said he put Lisa's body in the bathroom and then acted as if nothing were wrong.
Can you imagine that? What kind of person do you have to be?
A sociopath.
Of course.
For all of this. He is a total sociopath. After Arlene left again, he carried out the rest of the disposal. And I assume their infant daughter is home for all of this.
I don't even want to think about that part, honestly.
No.
Because, where's the baby?
Awful. I didn't do any looking into it because I'm hoping that she has her own life and she's well and healthy and happy and has nothing to do with any of this. So then Turner put Lisa's body in a garbage bag and he put all of her clothing in another garbage bag. He put socks over his hands so that he wouldn't leave any fingerprints, and he wiped down her shoes, her zippers, anything he thought could leave prints, and he carried the bags out to his car. He then drove the miles to rural Taycheedah and dumped them behind that wired fence off McCabe Road, where they were found 2 days later. As we said before, the autopsy confirmed the assault, the sexual assault, and also named potentially asphyxiation or potentially cardiac arrest triggered by the extent of the trauma as the cause of her death. The pathologist testified that the physical and emotional shock of the assault could have caused heart failure.
I mean, a 9-year-old with heart failure because...
No, I can't even... it's the worst. This is the worst kind of stuff that we talk about. But
yeah,
this case was important for a few reasons.
When the contents of Turner's confession were made public, they horrified the entire state of Wisconsin, and I guess even beyond that. The idea that a man who looked like any other young father, a guy with a girlfriend, a baby, a house on a quiet street, could commit such a violence against a neighbor's child was just unbearable. The trial of Gerald Miles Turner Jr. started in early 1975, and he was indicted on multiple charges: second-degree murder, indecent behavior with a child, enticing a child for immoral purposes, and sexual perversion. The prosecution's case leaned heavily on Turner's own confession, but the state also presented forensic evidence, mainly the hair and the fiber samples collected from Turner's apartment that matched what was found on Lisa's body and clothing. The most heartbreaking testimony came from the pathologist, Dr. Robert Karlofsky. He told the jury, as you said before, Lisa had died from asphyxiation, possible cardiac arrest, triggered by the trauma of the assault. He explained how the physical injuries and emotional shock could have overwhelmed her 9-year-old body, causing her heart just to stop. The defense, on the other hand, they tried to cast Turner as someone who had not set out to kill Lisa that night, arguing that her death was unintended. The tragic result of an assault gone too far. Obviously, we're all now like, what the fuck? That doesn't make it any better. And of course not. But I think it's the best the defense could do. They wanted to focus on the difference between first and second-degree murder, suggesting that while Turner was guilty of sexual assault, the state hadn't proved that he had deliberately set out to kill her. And if the prosecution could show premeditation or even a deliberate decision in the moment to end a life, the punishment was automatic life in prison. Second-degree murder is defined as causing someone's death by conduct that was, quote, imminently dangerous to another and evincing a depraved mind regardless of human life, end quote. But, and that's important, without the intent to kill. So in other words, the person didn't necessarily mean to kill, but their actions were so reckless, so dangerous, and so indifferent to human life that death was a foreseeable outcome. And the maximum penalty for that, well, that would be 25 years. And guess what? On 4th of February 1975, after days of testimony, they found Turner guilty on second-degree murder. But at least also on all the other charges, so enticing a child for immoral purposes, indecent behavior with a child, sexual perversion. For the sexual offenses, Turner received indeterminate sentences of up to 9 years and 6 months to run concurrently. For sexual perversion, an additional term of up to 4 years and 6 months, and for second-degree murder, a sentence of 24 years and 6 months. Combined, his total maximum sentence was 38 years and 6 months behind bars.
Of course, Turner didn't just accept his sentence. His lawyers filed an appeal almost immediately, and in 1977, the case went all the way to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The heart of the argument was this: Turner hadn't intended to kill Lisa, and what had happened wasn't, quote, imminently dangerous conduct evincing a depraved mind, which is the legal mouthful that defines second-degree murder in Wisconsin. In other words, they tried to say that Lisa's death was a tragic accident during a sexual assault, not a murder. Thankfully, the state pushed back hard, and the justices agreed with the prosecution. They ruled that by forcing a 9-year-old into sexual acts was, by definition, both depraved and imminently dangerous. It didn't matter whether Turner had set out planning to kill her. His conduct created exactly the kind of deadly risk the law was meant to cover. So, in 1977, the Supreme Court upheld his conviction and his sentence, and Turner stayed in prison. For almost 18 years after his conviction, Gerald Turner sat in Waupun Correctional Institution, a maximum security prison in Waupun, Wisconsin. All the while, the people of Fond du Lac tried to regain some form of normality, which was an impossible task. But still, parents raised their children, holidays came and went, and the years passed. Of course, the pain of Lisa's murder never disappeared, but at least the man responsible had been locked away. Then came October 1992, when news broke that Gerald Turner, the quote-unquote Halloween killer, was being released on parole. After serving just 18 years, he had reached his mandatory release date. In other words, the state couldn't keep him any longer, even if every single person in Fond du Lac wanted him buried under the prison, never to see the outside world again, right? His time was up. The outrage and backlash was intense. It wasn't just Lisa's family, it was all of Fond du Lac. All the people who had searched for Lisa, who had left their porch lights burning the night she disappeared. They now had to watch the man who confessed to killing her walk out of the prison gates. There were protests, petitions, furious town meetings. Wisconsin had never seen anything quite like it. And to make it worse, the logistics were a mess. At least Turner didn't have the audacity to return to Fond du Lac, but that didn't calm anyone down.
Oh my God, can you even imagine? I mean, there must be regulations preventing these kind of things, right? That you return to the community where you murdered a child?
You probably can. I don't think there's any law against it. Yeah, it's awful. It didn't really matter too much where he was going to live. What mattered was that he was living free at all. Then, within a year, some official was like, oh, wait, we miscalculated his release date, actually. And so in 1993, they hauled him back in. And that yo-yo of out, then in, then out, then in really kept him in the news and kept the anger about him being let out at all very much alive. Lawmakers are feeling the heat. And so they created Chapter 980, and this was done in 1994, and quickly nicknamed Turner's Law. The idea was basically, even after a prison sentence ends, if experts say that someone is still a dangerous sexual predator, the state can keep them locked up in a secure treatment facility. So whether or not you think the law is fair, it was born out of sheer terror that Gerald Turner might one day walk free for good, right? And I think, am I remembering correctly, there's a similar something like this in Austria?
Yeah, so it's been around since the 1970s, I think, and I talked about it before. It's called Sicherheitsverwahrung, which translates to preventative detention or security detention or however you want to call it in English. And yeah, so normally when you finish your prison sentence, that's it. You've paid your debt to society, you go free. But if the experts believe you're still so dangerous that letting you out would almost guarantee you'll hurt someone again, that's where the Sicherheitsverwahrung comes in. And it isn't technically a punishment. It's considered a measure, a Maßnahmenvollzug, how we call it. So, for example, if someone commits a violent or sexual crime and they're found to have severe mental disorders, or if they're a repeat offender who they're just not stopping, right? So now a court can order that after their prison time, they don't walk out the door. Instead, they go straight into a secure psychiatric facility or a special unit of the prison system. And then once you're in there, there's no fixed end date. Every year or two, I think, a court reviews the case. And then if experts say, yeah, this person is safe now, then in theory, they will be released. But in practice, it's not happening, right? So This is lifelong confinement in most cases. Some of them find it problematic, but I personally, and I'm sorry, I think this is a good way to protect society from people who simply won't stop being dangerous.
Yeah, won't or can't.
I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
This is it. I mean, especially knowing that this is something that's done in your country where prison is very much a rehabilitative situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's crucial to have something like this in place.
Yeah. You just can't say, okay, you've been in prison, like here, you murder a person, you get out after 25 years, for example. We don't have this lifelong prison sentences mostly. But look at what happened with Jack Unterweger, for example.
Yep.
He should have never gotten out of prison. Never.
Never.
But
there's so many cases like that.
So many.
It's also always frustrating for people like us and like our long-term listeners, anyone who's into true crime. Like, it's so enraging sometimes as well, isn't it, that violent sexual assault isn't treated more seriously because it leads to murder. There's no...
Yeah.
It's not like people who sexually assault people in a violent way don't eventually...
We saw it in the Dagmar Fürich case, the where this young ballet student was murdered in the Vienna State Opera, in the Vienna Opera. Then we saw it, I forget the name, where this guy broke into this family's house and held them captive and then murdered them.
Yes. Yeah.
And they were all in prison before and just released for violent offenses. Like, no.
Yeah. I think it really very much depends on what your specific offense was. It can't be lumped together the way they do it now, because there are certain situations where someone might have committed a murder, but after hearing the facts, you could say, you know what? I think this was a one of. I don't think this person. Now, do they need to go to prison? Yeah. There are people that I think probably would not be at a risk to, but then others who, even if they have never murdered anyone, nope, don't ever let them out. It's too dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, because of the miscalculation, which I find so wild, Turner was back in prison. And then because of Turner's law, it looked as if he would stay in there. But in 1998, a Fond du Lac County jury heard the question everyone dreaded. Was Turner a violent sexual predator under the brand new Chapter 980 law? And then after 4 days of testimony, the jury shocked the public by ruling, no, he's not. And that meant Turner could not be held in a treatment facility under Turner's law, the very statute his case had inspired, and instead he walked back out on mandatory parole. And no surprise there, things went sideways almost immediately. In June of 1998, Turner allegedly brandished a butcher knife and shouted at his parole caseworker in a halfway house. And then a psychiatrist deemed him still dangerous. But guess what? A judge declined to revoke parole. Like, what's going on there, Wisconsin?
If the people of Wisconsin had trust issues with the justice system before, I'm sure this was not helping, right?
No. That same year, Turner also tried to get a job. Waste Management of Madison turned him away because of his record. Turner sued, citing an old Wisconsin statute that prohibited job discrimination against ex-felons unless the conviction was substantially related to the job. Waste Management argued reasonably that employing a convicted child murderer around school tours and industrial chemicals was quite a terrible idea, but they lost and ended up settling with Turner. And the backlash to that was so intense that in October of 1999, the Wisconsin State Assembly repealed that protection law entirely, and from then on, Wisconsin employers could refuse to hire ex-felons solely based on criminal history. So once again, Turner's name reshaped Wisconsin law. And I think in that case, I can totally understand it, but now he spoils it for everybody else because there are enough ex-felons that didn't do violent crimes, for example, but who can now officially be discriminated against. And it's so hard to find a job anyway already.
That's right. This is all so complicated and difficult, but this guy is just the fucking worst.
Yeah. By 2003, Turner's parole blew up in his face entirely. Officials found a stash of pornographic content in his possession, which was a violation of his release terms. So this time he was sent back to prison with an extra 15 and a half years tacked onto his time. By 2018, Turner was now 68 years old and again facing mandatory release, this time from Racine Correctional Institution, and he had served the full 15 and a half years that he had received after his parole violation in 2003. Lisa's mother, Maryann, launched a petition to keep him locked up in a treatment facility instead, and it gathered over 34,000 signatures, including nearly 10,000 from Wisconsin residents. Thankfully, the State Department of Justice stepped in just before the release date, and they filed under Chapter 980, arguing Turner remained too dangerous to ever walk free. He was moved to the St. Rich Secure Treatment Center in Mauston while the courts argued about jurisdictions. Dane County or Fond du Lac, and his defense fought for Madison, where he'd once lived in a halfway house. The DOJ insisted it had to be Fond du Lac, where Lisa was killed, and appeals dragged on until 2019. And then a higher court sent the case back to Fond du Lac, and then COVID-19 delayed everything again.
Yeah. Finally, on February 23rd, 2022, the judge ruled that Gerald Turner would not be released. He was committed indefinitely to a high-security mental health facility under Chapter 980. But of course, that's not the end of it. His lawyers regularly try to get him out. The latest news we found was from summer of this year, 2025. This is an excerpt from NBC 26. Quote, "Judge says Halloween killer will stay in mental health facility. July 8th, 2025. A Fond du Lac judge on Tuesday denied a bid to reconsider the release of Gerald Turner, dubbed the Halloween killer. Turner was previously convicted of murder and sentenced to more than 38 years behind bars in connection with the death of 9-year-old Maryann French. Turner was released from prison in 2018, then immediately sent to the secure state-run mental health facility in Mauston. Since then, Turner and prosecutors have been involved in an ongoing legal battle to keep Turner committed." End quote. So that's where he is now. And we would like to end this episode with Turner's own words, because in his parole folder, there was a letter Turner wrote to Lisa. And we all know that criminals are advised by their attorneys to do this and show how remorseful they are, right?
Mm-hmm. So heartfelt. Mm-hmm.
So what we're looking for here, the attorney says, hey, write a letter, sound remorseful. And here it is. Quote, "I doubt that I could ever fully realize the terror you experienced at my hands. I can still see you standing in the doorway with that felt hat, beaming at having recognized me. Then I see the delight in your eyes turn to fear as I close the door behind you." End quote. Fucker. I hate him. How has he not been murdered in prison? Like, how did a guy that assaulted a child to death manage to last that long in prison?
It's this letter. There are two possibilities here. Either he knew she was terrified of him when he closed the door behind her, but he was too highly sexually motivated, which is like, I just want to throw up at his own words, seriously.
Well, because it's like, I was turned on. I was in the mood. I wanted some sexy time. And my fiance wasn't home. But then this child knocked on the door. So I was like, same difference. The fuck? Come on.
And also, I really worry about the baby at home. I'm sorry, but
Same. I'm glad that because he was gone before that baby got. I just hope that baby is okay. I hope that the girlfriend took that baby and. Yeah.
See, these are cases, and they're so important to talk about, obviously, and we really, I think we managed to be not salacious about it, because there is no need for all the details and everything.
No.
But these are the cases that really make me want to talk about history all the time.
I know.
And historical crimes. Like,
I know.
You know what I mean?
I do. I really do.
Like, I want to tell you about the king in medieval times who knocked his head on his way to a tennis match and died. That's the kind of things I want to talk to you mostly.
That's right. Yeah. I can't imagine why.
Uh-huh.
And it's infuriating. You want to tell them the worst part?
Yeah, the worst.
Not the worst. The worst part is obviously the fact that Lisa is gone. That is by far the worst. But
I don't think he feels remorse. I don't think he gives a single fuck.
Nope.
And I don't give a single fuck. People like him need to stay away from society, period.
Yep.
Period. We don't need them.
Nope.
Another thing I know is that apparently he thinks that this case only got all the attention because he murdered Lisa on Halloween. And he said that if he had murdered her on any other day, like for example Valentine's Day, nobody would have cared. He's the worst. I don't say that word often, but he's an asshole. He
is. He is an entire asshole. He is the worst. If you had any question, everything is about him. There's no remorse. There's nothing about anything anyone else has gone through. He's mad because he's in prison. He's mad because he's locked up. Where does he get the money for the attorneys? Because do you still get public defenders after all that time? Or
yeah, I have no idea. But
cases like this are why I didn't become an attorney. Can you imagine having to defend someone like this?
I mean, it's their right. Everybody deserves a fair trial.
I know.
Obviously.
It's not for me.
But it's so hard when you hear these kind of stories. And I was talking to my husband about this case a little bit, and I told him about how he claimed that he had tried to revive her, which was also kind of should show that he didn't set out to murder her and it was not intent. And my husband said something very smart, because obviously there must have been injuries. She's a child. If you try to do, chest compression on a child, there's going to be injuries. And my husband said, well, there were probably injuries, but not from trying to revive her.
Yeah. I suspect that either... Well, I don't even know if I want this on there, but I suspect he grabbed her really tight around her chest and squeezed very hard.
Or pushed her down really hard.
With his own weight. And then I think after everything was done for him, that's when he realized that she was gone.
Yeah. That's what I think as well. Yeah.
I don't think there was any I don't think he was checking in on her throughout the situation to see how she was doing. Let's put it that way. I just think this guy just the fact that everything, it's like, well, no one would even care. No, we do fucking care. We don't care that it happened on Halloween. Like, we care that you thought it was okay at all, that you took advantage of a day when children feel safe to go to their neighbor's house. It's not even like she was at a stranger's house, like 3 doors down, the neighbor whose house she'd been to visit his baby. Like... This one just I think this one hits me hard and makes me so angry because I see myself so clearly in this child, like such a similar vibe to the vibe I had. It's such of there, but for the grace of God, go I kind of a thing. It could be anybody's child. It could be anybody's. I just hate him. I just hate him so much. And the fact that it's just all about him. Woe is me. Oh, they keep locking me up. And no one would even care if I hadn't done it on Halloween. Get fucked, buddy, because I don't even know. I hate him so much.
He's the worst.
Let's talk about something good.
Yeah, I have nothing.
I'm just rage. I'm just so full of rage right now.
No, something good is all the firewood is now stacked. I finished today. My mom came over and helped me with the second huge part that got delivered yesterday. And we got everything done. And now I'm like, okay, I'm not going to freeze during winter. That's my something good. There's firewood. Thank you. It's all I have today.
That is a pile of wood. Paul was just saying, he's like, oh, that reminds me, I really need to get our wood delivered. And I was like, yeah, but their whole house, like is that your only source of heat is your wood?
No, it's not. We have like liquid propane or something like that. But it's so expensive.
Yeah.
It's so expensive to fill that tank. And so I keep like the rest of the house on like 18 degrees or something like that. And with the one wood stove, like if the doors are open, I can heat the bedroom, the kitchen, the entrance. Well, I also sewed like kind of, how do you call this, kind of curtains you hang that keep the cold out and, very old school. I did this, but it helps a lot and it saves so much money and energy.
It helps so much. I have these really...
So much, yeah.
The back of where my little den kind of is set up is all glass because they had it's right off the kitchen and they had it set up as like an eating kitchen, which was lovely. But it's got the only working wood-burning fireplace in the house. And so that's where I have it set up as our little den. You've all seen pictures of it whatever. But there's all these windows. And in the summertime, I keep these heavy curtains closed all the time because otherwise it gets so hot in there. But this time of year, it's like all the curtains are open, like let in the sunlight and then close them at night to keep the warmth in.
Listen, people back then knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Now we're all like open space and huge windows and no curtains. Like, no. I bought the cheapest IKEA blankets I could find and sewed them all together.
Yeah. No, we do that at the cottage too. Like we put a curtain rack up around where the staircase is just so you can put a curtain because otherwise if you're heating the downstairs, the heat just goes straight up the hallway into the upstairs.
You're just burning money.
Just wasting. Basically. Yeah. Well, now that we had solar put on last year. We have a while before we pay it off, but when we first bought this house in 2014, we were converting things from oil to natural gas. And now all the things as we go, we're converting back to electric because we have solar. But down the road, once you guys have finished everything, solar just keeps getting better and better.
We'll see, but I'm never gonna get rid of They have to pry my wood burning stove out of my
I
hands.
have to have my wood burning fireplace. I love it.
Yeah.
It was on my must have list. I had to have it, and I absolutely love it.
What's your something good?
I've been getting my nails done. My therapist and I talked a while ago about ways to feel better about feeling just kind of awful all the time and like living in my pajamas. And so I've been getting my nails done regularly lately, and I'm trying to have more fun with it. And it is nice. I like having my nails done. It's like a small thing, but
yeah,
it makes me feel better about myself in a small way. So
yeah, absolutely. Don't forget to put on sunblock on your hands when you do it.
Yeah. I know.
Please tell them about the photos Paul and I sent you twice.
Oh, every so often, well, it's happened twice now. Johanna will send me a picture of some crazy nails and she'll go, "You have to do this." And the first time I think you sent me a picture and then Paul showed me a picture and was like, "You have to do this." And I was laughing. I took a picture of Paul showing me the same picture you'd messaged me earlier because Paul said the same thing. "Look at these nails. You have to do these." And I was like, wow, that's funny. And then it just happened again. The other way around, though, this time. So I'm going to get those nails done. With my luck, I'll even get them done before Halloween is over.
We very clearly know you so well.
Yeah, very well. Very, very well. So, also, you know what happened that was super exciting and cute? Opus and Bean fell asleep together, and it was the cutest thing in the whole
that
world.
was so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send you guys pictures. She fell asleep on him, and like, oh my God, it's my whole dream scenario. But then maybe 5 minutes after, and they slept like that for a while, and then maybe 5 minutes after the little picture and video we got, she started to snore really loud, and it woke him up with such a startle, and he was so confused. I wish I had a video. We were laughing. We were crying, laughing at the look on his face because he was like, "Why is she on top of me? Like, how did this happen?" His face. So funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it, right?
That's it. If you'd like to help support the show, the very best thing you can do is take a moment to rate and review Fresh Hell Podcast wherever you listen. It really does make such a huge difference. Plus, it's fun. Johanna can't see any of the reviews that we get in the US. They're only on like the US Apple thing. So I constantly have to check and then send her these really lovely things. You guys, thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, it makes our day.
We read I know there's a lot of podcasters who are like, we don't read reviews, but please leave them. We read every review, every single one. So thank you.
You can also subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, please leave us a comment. We love hearing from you there as well.
If you'd like even more Fresh Hell, check out our Patreon for bonus content, early access, our Cinema Macabre videos, and our monthly live chats with you, our Hellions. So remember, it's tonight.
Tonight, 24th of October. Don't forget our Halloween live get-together. This is Halloween. This is Halloween. 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 Sorry.
Halloween.
What else? We've also got a fantastic Facebook group, and you can always reach us via email, freshhellpodcast@gmail.com, or snail mail, our PO box. Everything is on our website, freshhellpodcast.com.
That's right.
Please tell your pets, we said hi, hug them, cuddle them, keep them warm, keep them cold wherever you are on this big round planet. We circle through the universe. Be kind to them. Be kind to your fellow human being. Be kind to yourself. You can hear that it's getting late here and I need to take a shower.
Yeah. And just remember, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Keep going. Choose.
Nope. Why did I say keep going? I never say keep going. Oh my God.
Well, I'm out of here. You don't need me anymore.
later days. Oh my God, could you imagine? Don't ever leave me. There is no, you could do this without me. I could not do this without you.
I can't do that without
All right.
you. Bye. Tschüss.
You could.
Tschüss, bye.
Bye.